Every year at Feis Ile, Laphroaig releases their Carchis bottling. And in Gaelic, Carchis means friendship. But is this bottling a friend or is it a foe? Let's find out. Hey guys, thank you once again for joining me on Whiskey on the West Coast. My name is Matt, and today we're going to be talking about the Laphroaig Carchis Warehouse 1 2022 release for Feis Ile. It's bottled at 52.2% alcohol, and that is not cask strength as far as I'm aware. So it's not a cask strength bottling of Carchis. It is a first fill Maker's Mark ex-bourbon cask matured whiskey that matured in Warehouse 1 on the grounds of Laphroaig. So entirely matured in Warehouse 1 by the ocean. Now, in 2015, the Carchis release for that year, for the 200th anniversary, also was a ex-Maker's Mark bourbon cask Warehouse 1 release. However, the difference with that one is that one was completely floor malted barley from Laphroaig. This one, it would include barley that was also floor malted at Port Ellen. It might have some that was floor malted at Laphroaig, but it's not completely floor malted at Laphroaig. So it's a difference there, and I would really love to try that 2015 Carchis. I never got a chance to. However, Carchis, if you're not aware, the line first released in 2008. Again, it's a Feis Ile bottling to celebrate Islay and all things Islay whiskey. And the word Carchis in Gaelic actually means friendship. And that moniker, this name for this whiskey actually came, I learned recently on Roy's V-Pub, Aqua Vitae's V-Pub with John Campbell, who's now of Lochleigh. I learned that John Campbell's grandmother actually gave it its moniker of Carchis, which is really funny because I understand that she's not actually a whiskey drinker. So she gave a really famous name to a really famous whiskey, but didn't drink whiskey herself. So really funny story there. Now, Warehouse 1 is a 4-story dunnage warehouse that's used to age whiskey on the grounds of Laphroaig. It's right by the ocean. It's the one that bears the name in big, bold letters, Laphroaig. Now, in the mid-1830s, a little bit of history here, there was a rival distillery that was founded on the land just beside Laphroaig, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but it's Ardenstiel. The Ardenstiel distillery is a really fascinating history because they actually became kind of rival distilleries. The owners of Laphroaig didn't like the owners of Ardenstiel kind of like hustling up on their territory, getting so close, trying to make whiskey just like theirs. And spoiler alert, in 1866, Ardenstiel actually declared bankruptcy. So they went under. They stopped making whiskey. And so Laphroaig at the time bought up a bunch of the equipment that distillery was using. They also bought up the buildings. And one of these buildings that they took over ownership, actually was turned into a new warehouse for Laphroaig. Yes, Warehouse 1. The warehouse that bears the name in big, bold letters, Laphroaig, not Ardenstiel, was actually originally part of that rival distillery, which is a really good kind of screw you to that distillery. Really fascinating history there. But because it's so close to the ocean, there's a lot of claims about really coastal notes coming from the casks that are aged at Warehouse 1. I think this is a great time for us to jump into this whiskey with some tasting notes. All right, let's jump into the nose here. So Laphroaig Carchis Warehouse 1. I believe this is likely natural color, but there's no promises made on the label here. But I think typically the Carchis releases are natural color. And it doesn't mention chill filtration either. Now, the quarter cask actually mentions on the back label that it is not chill filtered. Nothing on this is indicating it as far as I can read. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you find a source that says it's non-chill filtered, natural color, let me know in the comments. And again, not cask strength, but bottled at a nice strength, 52.2% ex-Maker's Mark bourbon casks. So on the nose. It's a sweet nose, which is not unexpected. Still the medicinal nature of Laphroaig there, though. Goes without saying that this is peaty. There's smoke there, but first things I get, because I'm used to just a Laphroaig nose, like some of the things that are automatic with Laphroaig, like the iodine note, the bandage notes, which are there, but they're toned down a bit. first things I'm getting here are sweet vanilla, like a salted caramel sort of note. You have the coastal peat there, as I mentioned. Seaweed, smoke, it's medicinal. But it's a very clean Laphroaig. Not exceptionally dirty. It's not whacking over the top of the head with pure Laphroaig character here. Yeah, really clean. Touch of minerality, like salty coastalness, and like really salty. Like ocean brine, which I love that character in a whiskey. You'll hear me talk about it a lot. I target whiskeys with that, so I'm going to review a lot of whiskeys that have a coastal character to them because I really enjoy them. Bit more fruit to it too. Some like pear drops. Some like boiled sweets, like sweet hard candies. A weird note that I picked up a few times here is almost like a cream soda effervescence. Like there's a bit of like a bubbliness to this, like a fizziness, and it reminds me with the nosing notes I'm getting here of like a cream soda. Yeah, some orange zest too. But again, all those typical Laphroaig notes are there, but they're just dialed back 1 or 2 notches, which I think is letting some other notes shine. Now, on the note of salty character in a whiskey, because there's no salt as far as I'm aware, and I don't think the science shows any salt going into these whiskeys. I'm not certain as to the science of what chemical, what type of cogener or what's going on that's bringing this salt note. But again, referencing Roy's V-Pub with John Campbell, he mentioned something really fascinating. He said that the salinity, the salty note, that maritime coastal note of saltiness, that begins, at least in Laphroaig, at 6 years old when it's aging. And it typically fades away by the time it hits 13 years old, which blew my mind that he knew exactly how old the whiskey was when it starts this and how old it is when that starts to disappear. Really cool note. All right, taking a sip. Okay, this is gonna get weird. Sweet, candied kelp. Like, I don't think that exists, but that is the impression I'm giving. Like somebody harvested kelp, and they've gone ahead and they've like caramelized it. They've turned it into like kelp candy of some sort. Because I'm getting these ocean vibes, I'm getting this coastal note, this seaweed and brine, but it's sweet. It's so sweet. Yeah, almost no alcohol bite for something that's over 50% alcohol. And on first sip, there's a touch of a bitter note though. And it's going through into the finish here too, like almost like a piney, resiny note, which I often get with Laphroaig, and I really enjoy as someone who enjoys IPAs and bitter beers. There's also like a cigarette ash, real ashy smoke. It's not overwhelming though, but it's kind of reminiscent of cigarette smoke. The medicinal notes are there. There's the iodine, but again, this isn't Laphroaig at 120 kilometers an hour or 100 miles an hour. I don't know what country you're watching from. We could do kilometers here, but it's softer than expected, most certainly. Let's take another sip. All that sweetness, all that character from Laphroaig. But again, that saltiness, some lime, almost like a margarita thing going on. This drinks really easily, really easily. It's not the brute force of like the Laphroaig 10 cask strength. It is not that. It's more, I'm not going to say it's better, but it's nuanced. Again, it's this really great tightrope walk of letting this other side of Laphroaig shine a little bit. Which I'm enjoying, and this is exactly why I was so excited when they announced this release was going to be an ex-bourbon cask release. The finish, it's a softer, gentler Laphroaig. Same mantra I've already been saying on the nose and palate. Medicinal, like roasting seaweed over a campfire by the sea. The sweetness still pulls through. One more sip here, and I'll finish my notes on the finish, and then we'll get to a score. This whiskey is just so drinkable. It's so drinkable. Oh man, okay. Again, sweetness is there. Some pine nut again. Some like resiny. Yeah, sort of like a nice like bitter hop vibe. Peanut too. With a lot of these more bourbon focused Laphroaigs, like the quarter cask, I got a peanut note off that. I'm getting a bit of peanut on the finish here too. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's probably coming from Maker's Mark bourbon barrels. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this. I went through a phase of targeting sherry cask finish Laphroaig because it just seemed like it was harder to get. And so the Laphroaig 10 Sherry Oak, really enjoy that. And I love the kind of like really like smoked bacon notes, real meaty notes with that syrupy sweetness you get off that. But this is a style that just lets the Laphroaig character sing and reveals some of the fruitiness and some of the sweet tones too. I've enjoyed this. I'm gonna give this a score of 89 out of 100. I've really enjoyed it. It's not one of those like instant classics that hits that 90 point range and where you have to own it. But I think it's a really cool spin on Laphroaig, and I think it was well worth a purchase. Purchase price for me was about $120 Canadian, so under $100 American. It's reasonable. I love that about Laphroaig because their Carchus releases haven't skyrocketed in price outside that port and wine one for some reason. Like Ardbeg has. Ardbeg's committee releases are just, they're $200, like $180 Canadian to $230 Canadian for the non-committee cast strength release version. So I appreciate that Laphroaig, the prices are a little more manageable. Thank you once again, guys, for joining me on Whiskey on the West Coast. If you could subscribe if you haven't already, like, share, comment down below. What is your favorite Laphroaig Carchus release? Have you had any? If you've had them all, go ahead and give me a power ranking of the best through the worst if you have that extensive history with these releases. I'd love to try more of them. I've only tried 3 or 4. But let me know what you think of the Carchus line. Thank you once again for joining me on the West Coast. Until next time, sláinte.